What is up, Armchair Fandomaniacs? This is The Real Last Jedi back with another movie review. I've been promising this review for quite some time, but it has taken me a little longer to get it out than I anticipated due to life circumstances. This week we're going to be reviewing the movie Jaws from 1975, directed by Spielberg, starring Roy Scheider as Police Chief Martin Brody, Robert Shaw as Shark Hunter Quint, an owner of the fishing boat named Orca, Richard Dreyfuss as Matt Hooper, and Lorraine Gary as Ellen Brody, and a very large shark, great white shark. Now, before we get started into this review, the first thing I want to mention is the composer John Williams, who composed the movie for Jaws. And in Jaws, just like all the other movies, John Williams has composed for. The music itself becomes a character of its own in Jaws. John Williams composed the music for many of the most popular franchises in movie history. He composed the music for the Star Wars franchise, every one of the movies. He composed the music for Indiana Jones, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Superman franchise that starred Christopher Reeves back in the 70s and 80s, and in each and every one of those movies and all his work that he's done over the years, his music actually becomes a character in and of itself. And that's no different here in this movie, Jaws from 1975, about a big fish that terrorizes a small town in Amity Island. And as a matter of fact, without the music, I don't know that Jaws is quite the same movie. But moving on, Jaws is the thriller or horror film about a great white shark that terrorizes the small New England town of Amity Island, like I just mentioned. And it took audiences by storm in 1975. To many, Jaws is considered to be the first true blockbuster movie, as it was released 2 years before Star Wars and saw large crowds waiting in line around city blocks, which is where the term blockbuster came from. But they lined out around city blocks to see The Terror of the Sea eat and chomp its way to becoming one of the true classics of American cinema. The movie opens on a beach with teenagers sitting around the campfire as a boy and girl are being flirtatious with each other, and the girl gets up and runs away, eventually ending up in the water as the boy passes out on the beach. As the girl is swimming, she begins to be attacked by the shark, which lurks just below the surface of the water, which ends up being an element of this movie that makes it work so well. You don't actually ever see the shark in this movie except a few glimpses here and there toward the end of the movie, but most of the terror and anticipation comes from it being just below the surface. All we really see, a whole lot of it throughout the first and second act of the movie, is just the dorsal fin sticking up out of the water. But as production time and budget on this movie ballooned due to poor functionality of a mechanical prop shark and the difficulty of filming on location in the Atlantic Ocean, the lack of sightings of the actual shark itself because of filming challenges ends up lending a sense of realism to the terror of swimming anywhere that creatures could be lurking just below the surface of the water, unknown to those above. The opening scene finishes up with a terrifying shot of the girl not being devoured before our eyes, but simply being pulled under, never to be seen again. And as Jaws unfolds, more events lead to Amity Police Chief Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider, becoming suspicious that Amity Island is being threatened by a rogue great white shark, which leads to a confrontation between him and his desire to close down the beaches until the shark is killed, and the town's mayor, who demands they be kept open because the summer beach dollars are so vital to the town's economy. This tug of war comes to a head when Alex Kittner, a young Amity boy, is killed by the shark in front of everyone, including the tourist. This event propels the movie forward and introduces us to Matt Hooper, played by Richard Dreyfuss, a marine biologist who comes to town to be of assistance with Amity's shark problem. We're also reintroduced to the character of Quint, played by Robert Shaw, who we saw earlier in the film, as the town is now prepared to pay the high price he demands for tracking down and killing the shark. As these three men set out on the open water in the Orca, the fishing boat owed by Quint, the rest of this movie takes place on the open water in a duel to the death between a boat, its three passengers, and a great white shark. Up to this point in the movie, as the audience, we have gotten a few looks here and there of the shark, but only after this team sets out to find and kill the shark do things begin to unfold that allows us, the audience, to know just how big of a threat the shark truly is to our three main characters. A couple points I'd like to point out regarding this aspect is in one shot, while chumming for the shark, we see it surface just behind our main character, who catches a glimpse of it, backs up, and utters one of the most famous lines from the movie when he says, "You're going to need a bigger boat." Another point I want to point out that makes us realize just how big of a threat that they face is number 2, while shooting the shark with darts that are then attached to barrels filled with air. Our crew watches the shark pull the barrels under the water as a second, even a third barrel is lassoed around the shark. So the more barrels they add, the shark just keeps pulling them underwater when they're meant to keep them above the water. After Quint makes the comment that the shark could never pull 2 barrels under the water, we realize the threat of this shark as it pulls even a third barrel under. Jaws culminates with marine biologist Matt Cooper agreeing to enter a shark cage, where he will then enter the water with the shark and stick it with a tranquilizer dart. After the shark utterly destroys the cage Cooper's in, Cooper is forced to swim under a reef and simply hide as Quint and Brody take on the shark above water. The shark has obviously had enough of our heroes at this point and begins to prove the point that the Orca is not a big enough boat, as it begins attacking the boat itself. At one point, the shark comes up out of the water and places itself half on the rear of the boat and half in the water, causing the boat to angle down into the water and begin to sink. One of the most gruesome death scenes takes place at this point, and it's one of the most gruesome death scenes, in my opinion, to date in film, as Quint is struggling not to slide down the floor of the boat while it's angled downward toward the shark, finally losing the battle and being devoured slowly from the feet up, with the last we see of Quint seeing him half-eaten and being pulled into the water by the shark. As the climax arrives and the Orca sinks, Martin Brody grabs a rifle and climbs to the highest point of the boat, still sticking up out of the water. As he takes aim at an oxygen tank he previously threw in the shark's mouth, and the shark swims toward him, he begins to take shots at the oxygen tank. As he fires one shot after another, we end up at what I believe is still one of the most memorable scenes and lines in movie history. As he takes the last shot, he smiles. He says, "Smile, you son of a bitch." And then we see the shark explode into a million pieces. As Matt Cooper resurfaces, the two men begin to chuckle, and Matt simply looks at Brody and says, "Quint," as in to ask if he was still alive, and Martin simply says no. And the final shot is Cooper and Brody floating on 2 of the air-filled barrels and kicking toward land with their feet as the credits roll. that would bring us to the end of the movie. Jaws, in my opinion, is one of those timeless classics that never gets old. No matter how many times you see this movie or you've watched it, you still find things that are new. You're still entertained by the movie, the realism of it. It's got currently a 98% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 90% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which tells me that most viewers from all walks of life enjoy the movie Jaws. There were 3 sequels for the movie Jaws. Jaws 2, which is not as good as the first one, but it still lives up to par. And then Jaws 3 and Jaws 4, which didn't live up to the name of the franchise. But as a kid, I still liked watching even those versions. This is one of those movies, when it first came out, it was marketed and people viewed it as a horror movie. But as time goes on, you realize that not only is it a horror movie, but it's truly a masterpiece in movie making. For this channel, I would give Jaws a 4.5 out of 5 armchairs. I want to thank you for tuning in to this video. I want to ask you, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button on this video, hit the like button. If you are not subscribed to our channel, open a YouTube account and subscribe to Armchair Fandom. Click the notification bell so that you can receive notifications through your email each time we have a new video up for viewing. And leave a comment in our comment section below. Let us know how we're doing. Give us feedback. Give us some ideas on what kind of videos you would like to see us do. You can find us on Facebook at the Facebook group Armchair Fandom. You can also find us on Twitter at Armchair_Fandom. Thank you and have a nice evening.